Hello everyone and welcome back to Prin's Crypto Daily. In today's video we are talking about why Kevin O'Leary believes that Bitcoin could rise again. But before we dive into the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell to get notified for all the latest news about cryptocurrency.
When that regulator in Norway or in New York or in any other jurisdiction comes out and says we're going to ban this because we think it's bad for the environment, there's no pushback. And that's a huge mistake that Bitcoin miners have done to themselves, and they've got to fix that. So basically, when you think about why Bitcoin mining could be good for the environment, it's basically the profit motive. In order to mine profitably, you want the lowest cost of energy you can get. And in many geographies in the world, that's sustainable solar and wind. Certainly West Texas, that's the case. And you see a lot of interest in going there to tap into that unused resource, because so much of that West Texas wind isn't being used by anybody. It's not even putting back into the grid. So why not monetize it in the form of Bitcoin, which is a good use of that unused power? The same in northern Alberta, where you can get already flared off gas that's being flared off now and turn that into Bitcoin. These are all sustainable in the sense that they're creating value, and that's important. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, of course, there are miners all around the world that are burning coal. Nobody wants that anymore, which is why you have institutions saying you've got to show me the difference between a coin mined that way and one that's done sustainably, and I'll buy the sustainable coin even if I have to pay a premium. That's the remarkable discussion that's going on, because half the community says, I want fungibility. I don't care where the coin was mined or how it was mined. It has to be the same value as one that was mined sustainably. I think we're going to go through a huge debate on that on the 4th and 5th. But that's all part of the important dialogue. But my point is, Bitcoin mining can be very good for the environment because it forces new innovation in the creation of energy.
Okay, point made. But let's disregard the whole environmental issue for now and assuming it's resolved. I'm concerned about governments, central banks, traditional banking institutions not liking this usurper, something that now comes and takes away their monopoly from printing money. We have billionaire hedge fund manager Ray Dalio says he'd rather have Bitcoin than a bond. And if the crypto space does continue to attract investors' attention, government bonds are going to see significant outflows. Governments are going to lose control over their ability to raise money. And I don't think they're going to like that very much, Kevin. So does that lead to government intervention? Is that a concern for you at all?
Government intervention and the regulatory environment is always on the top of mind for me, because I have so many investments in financial services companies that I really care that we never in any situation go afoul of the regulator. That is a very bad waste of energy in terms of doing that to yourself. So compliance is my #1 cost in all of my financial services investments. And I've learned to live with that, and I respect it, and I understand how valuable that is to be compliant versus not being compliant. So when we think ahead of where crypto is going to go, let's think of two paths. The concern you have is talking about it, and I agree with you, as a currency, that it would somehow usurp the US dollar, the standard currency, the gold standard for the world, if you would, in terms of fiat currency. I don't think that's the long run for Bitcoin, unless we're staying specifically in Bitcoin. The reason I own Bitcoin is it's an asset, like a property, like a home, like a piece of land, like a piece of art that is unique, like a watch that's one of a kind. To me, it's not a currency. It is not that efficient to use as a currency for a whole lot of reasons. But as an asset, like an acre of land in a desirable geography, to me, that's what it is. When I buy my coin, I have no intention of selling it. I am going for the long run to see if it appreciates more than other hard assets, because it is a unique asset in that respect. So I'm not as worried about Bitcoin specifically actually being competitive with governments. I think they will come to the conclusion that it is an asset, a hard asset, a digital asset, and it's desirable for people that have a long-term view and want to allocate, in my case, 3 to 5% weighting in that asset, just like I do real estate, or just like I do gold. There's no difference. I still have a 5% weighting in gold, in bullion, and in ETFs, and I look at Bitcoin the same way. So yes, you could be concerned, but it is such an so inefficient as a currency there's probably going to be something that works better. Now, whether that's tied to the chain or Ethereum ends up being that, or whether there's an actual US token, as we already have, stable coins, there's many other solutions to this problem, but Bitcoin's unique. It is what institutions want as a property, as an asset, and that's why I think it's going to remain that coveted.
So if it does remain a coveted asset as a store of value, where do you think the price of Bitcoin can go in the next 5 years?
I'm very bullish.
How bullish?
I'll tell you why I'm bullish. It goes back to your original question. It's a full circle. You asked about sustainability and the interest of institutions. I talk to institutions every day. They are not going to buy Bitcoin until this ESG issue is resolved, period. There's no flexibility. They have no choice. They've already decided that they're going to stay within the covenants of their ESG committees. I believe the industry hears them. You know, just 2 months ago when miners were trying to raise capital in public markets, it was very easy to do so. That is not the case today. It has really become much more difficult because every institution that's approached to fund a new mining operation, regardless of the geography, is asking the same questions about sustainability, around compliance, around ethics. And so we're going to have this period, this pause, the pause that refreshes perhaps while we work this out. Some solutions being discussed, and indeed I'm funding some of these right now, is the idea of putting a wrapper on a coin that identifies it as a sustainably mined green coin. Now there's a huge debate going on about that because it takes away the fungibility of a coin that was the number one Bitcoin that was ever mined, was probably not done in a sustainable way. But if this solves the problem for the next 2.5 million coins, and think about this, there are many miners that have kept their original coins on their balance sheets since day one, that have never sold them and simply lend them out to get fiat to pay their expenses. Those coins were mined sustainably. They could also win that wrapper. And so I want to be one of the people investing in the technology that provides wrappers for my coins to prove that they were mined sustainably and that the institutions that I partner with to actually fund my mining operations and my expansion into more mining operations are doing so within the covenants of their ESG committees. And that includes sovereign funds. This dialogue is going on today, and there's at least 2 groups I know of, I'm involved in one of them, that is actually funding the development of these green wrappers. And so look, I'm happy to have the debate with anybody, but it's a solution that really works. So what if you pay a small premium that offsets the carbon that you created making a coin? Particularly if you're doing it on a sustainable basis, you're not going to pay a lot for that, and yet you'll have what is so coveted by institutions, a green coin.
So, Kevin, if the stars align and all of these issues are successfully addressed, what do you see as the target price for Bitcoin in, say, 5 years' time or even 2 years' time? I'm trying to get you to say a number for me here.
I think it will beat the equity indexes. That's what I think. Now, you know, on a long period of time, 7 to 8% for equity indexes. I think this asset class will outperform over the next 10, 15 years. I invest for the long term. I have made my decision currently at a 3% weighting in Bitcoin. I've done that because I believe it will outperform the indices over the next 10 years. Now, the only reason you would do that is you're going to make a similar decision. I tell every institution that calls me about this, look, it's a binary decision. The first decision is, are you going to hold Bitcoin? Yes or no? Second decision, if it's yes, follow that decision tree. It goes to what weighting would you actually put in Bitcoin in today's dollar value? Now, if most institutions have a 5 to 10% weighting in gold, and they have for decades. Gold was not mined sustainably. It's one of the most polluted things you can do to the earth. And yet they ignored those issues when they took the bullion out of the ground. Now that bullion exists around the world, and it's a coveted asset, no different than a digital asset in my view, but they've got a 5% weighting on average. So your decision is, I'll take a 5% weighting in Bitcoin, but I have a sustainability committee to answer to first. That's where I think we're going. And if that happens that way and the institutional log jam opens up and that capital starts coming in, which by the way is in the trillions of dollars, I see Bitcoin outperforming the stock indices for a very long time. But I'm not betting the farm on it. I'm a 3 to 5% weighting. That's a rational decision for an investor like me.